Okay, guys, you're all very welcome along to this LGFA Planning Your Club AGM webinar. My name is Niall Mulrine. I'm a National Development Officer with the LGFA, and I'm joined tonight by Gerard Balfrey. Gerard, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm Gerard. I'm the Munster Development Officer for the LGFA, and basically I'll be assisting Niall this evening. So I'll be taking and controlling, watching all of your comments that you make. So if you have any specific questions, if you could put them into the Q&A section, and if Niall is looking for a response throughout the presentation, you can use the chat function. So if you have anything specific, you can put it into the Q&A and we can address them all at the end of the webinar. And then anything throughout, you can use the chat function.
Yeah, thanks very much, Gerard. So I suppose just a bit of housekeeping before we begin. Hopefully this webinar lasts about 75 minutes maximum. I think probably our presentation should last about 45 minutes tonight. And then if we have any questions, we've given that time for that as well. You'll all be placed on mute just to avoid noise interruptions during the main presentation. And again, as Gerard said, we'll be using the chat function if anyone wants to input anything. And there's also a wee function where you can raise your hand as well. So Gerard will be keeping an eye on that. As I say, if you want to ask a question, type it into the Q&A function. So you'll see that there's a chat function, but there's also a Q&A function. So if you have a specific question about the presentation, if you'd like to write that into the Q&A function, thanks. And again, you can raise your hand to ask a question. We'll probably leave all the questions just to the very end and we'll take them all as a group. And then every other interaction. So we might ask you to do a few wee things over the course of the presentation if you'd like to type that into the chat. And again, if you can't hear or interact at any stage, we advise you to leave and rejoin using the same link. So I suppose just to begin, as I say, what we're looking at tonight is planning your club AGM. And I suppose there's so many things to do and so many things to think of when you're planning your AGM. So we thought we'd put together this webinar tonight just to make sure you're not being pulled in all over the place and in too many directions, and give you the guidance about what to do, especially at the current period. So I suppose to get started straight away, what is your AGM? So your AGM should be held on or before the 1st of December. And your members should be notified of that at least 5 days beforehand. Okay, so those are in the official guide that your AGM should be held before the 1st of December each year, and that your members should be notified at least 5 days beforehand. And I suppose the big things with your AGM, and especially this year, is that your outgoing secretary and treasurer should give a report of the activities in their areas for the club for the previous year. As well as that, your AGM should elect your officers for the forthcoming year. So at the AGM, you elect your chairperson, your vice chair, your secretary and assistant secretary, registrar, assistant registrar, treasurer and assistant treasurer, delegates to the county board and the county convention, and I say the assistant positions, your development officer and culture and language officer may also be selected. And as well as that, you must appoint a children's officer who should be a member of the management committee as well. And a report of your AGM must be sent to your county board within 10 days of your AGM as well. So those are things just to remember before we get started, and just to get us into what the AGM actually is and what it's for. I said we'd be getting you to interact. So straight away, I'd like you to write into the chat, how can you communicate about your upcoming AGM to your club members? So Gerard's going to keep an eye on that and to say, well, let it run for maybe a minute or two, and all the different ways you communicate about your upcoming AGM to the club members, and say Gerard will keep an eye on that. So Gerard, if you want to just relay what comes in there for us, thanks.
So a lot of social media coming in, Facebook, WhatsApp groups, notes in newspaper, club phone, newsletter, team message, Facebook, Instagram, all through social media, monthly committee meeting. WhatsApp, Facebook, WhatsApp, yeah, all along the same lines, local newspaper and group messages. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so I suppose the main thing when you're communicating to your members is you are communicating to your members, is say they need to know at least 5 days before the AGM is happening. So some couple of helps or hints and tips are promote the AGM through positive verbal communication first of all. So make sure everyone knows about it, and everyone you're talking to knows about it, that the local community knows about it. Positive body language, that is something, and not just, that's not just a method, that's about making sure people want to come to the AGM as well, that they're excited about it, that they want to get involved in it, and a welcoming attitude as well, that you're welcoming everyone in the club to take part in the AGM. Notification, so that's really, really important. As I say, it needs to be 5 days before, at least 5 days before the AGM takes place. But again, if you're being a proactive club, you'll be doing that a lot longer before that the AGM actually takes place, and that needs to be written notice to your members. So again, I know written notice used to be a letter to everyone, but your official methods of communication, so your email as well, can be emailed out to your club members that the AGM is taking place. And then all the other things as well, like I say, the posts on social media, the newspapers, newsletters, as I say, all your texts and your messages to teams and messages to groups and all that kind of stuff as well, and posters up locally too. So those are the kind of things you need to do to be able to let people know your AGM's on. It's the first thing I suppose we wanted to stress tonight is make sure even in this at this time that people know that the AGM is still taking place and how to get involved in it as well. Big tip here is don't leave it to the night, or don't leave it to the last minute. As I say there, even when you're communicating about your AGM, you don't want to leave it to the last 5 days. Okay, so communicate it early. And as well as this here, I suppose this tip is around getting people to put themselves forward for election to be an officer in your AGM as well. So don't leave that to the last night, or don't leave it to the night as well. And some tips on that can be have clear role descriptions. So if you have someone who is thinking of taking on a position, or you want someone to maybe think of taking on a position, have a clear role description for them. Let them know exactly what's expected when they're going to take on an officer role within the club. Identify the person with the qualities required to take on a role within your club. So those are really easy things to do now. In sort of the 2 months before your AGM has to happen. Start thinking of people who would be good in different roles, and go up and ask them. So ask potential volunteers and have that personal touch. Don't just put out a mass email or a mass message saying we want people to volunteer. Identify the people that would be good in a certain role and go up and ask them. Now, well, that's picking up the phone at the minute, obviously in these socially distanced times, but go and ask them and make sure they know why you think they would be good in the role as well. And it's not just about filling the position. And ensure people are clear of what will be required when they join a committee as well, because I'm sure we all know, and hopefully not in the last while, because there's been a tremendous effort by volunteers across the association. We know sometimes there can be ghost roles on committees, and we don't want that, especially at the minute. As well as that, set up subcommittees. So again, from your AGM or this possibly after your AGM, set up subcommittees and let people know there's going to be subcommittees, that when someone does take on a role or somebody takes on to do something from the AGM, that they will be supported, and that's really important for people as well. And again, with that, match the right people to the right subcommittee. If you have a local business person, get them on the fundraising committee, or have a parents group as well, and get them maybe taking on a small role once every couple of weeks. So that's some tips maybe about getting people to help out at your AGM. And we do actually have a volunteer recruitment and retention workshop as well, that we will do as a webinar over the next couple of weeks as well. So if you're interested in a bit more of that, that'll all be covered there. Again, some of the benefits of having all your roles filled at your AGM, as we talked about all those roles previously, it gives a better structure to your club. Okay, so once you don't have one or two people doing several roles, they can concentrate more in their own areas, and they can really, I suppose, drive the thing on. You want to have good officers as well in all your roles. So once people are, I suppose, focusing on doing one job, instead of leaving some role open and you're having 2 or 3 people maybe job sharing it, they can concentrate in their own role, and they can be better officers in the club. You can have more teamwork because there's more people helping out, and you're all working towards the same goal as well. That leads into sharing ideas. So you have more people there, you have more ideas coming through. And again, a spread of the workload as well. Better efficiency, as we talked about there. Instead of having people double jobbing or having a couple of people doing a number of different roles, if you share that workload out, you'll have people working more effectively and more efficiently in their own role as well. You want more involvement from members, and like we're a member, we're a volunteer and a member-led association, and that's true for our clubs as well. So you want people helping out, you want people engaging in the club. So it's good to have more people involved. Again, more productivity, same as more efficiency, really, better organisation and an opportunity to plan ahead. So once you get your committee and once you get people committed to roles, you can plan where you want to be in a number of years. Okay, so I suppose it's good. Now, on the other point, that it's good to have and it is important to have a full executive, and it's important to have positions full, but it's equally important to ensure that each officer knows their role and are active in their role. So I suppose I said there, I don't think we've seen it over the last while because of the tremendous effort by everyone during the pandemic at the minute, and even non-football related roles that people have taken on. But we know it is something that happens in every club and every unit, that we do have people maybe take on a role and for whatever reason they can't really commit to it. So I would always say it's more important to have people committed to the role than to have every role filled. So that's something just to remember as well, just before we go forward. I suppose the elephant in the room for everyone is what happens now and what happens this year during obviously the COVID pandemic. So how do we run our AGM, or what happens there? So hopefully over the next 10 or 12 slides, we'll maybe give you a better indication of that as well. So in light of the ongoing pandemic, the way we hold meetings has to change. So I'm sure we're all aware of that at this stage. And I know, obviously, we're holding this webinar online tonight. And I'm sure over the last number of months, we've all got very, very used to holding meetings, whether that's with our family or our friends or colleagues or at work or whatever it is, holding them online and holding them socially distanced. With restrictions still in place, and obviously there could be more restrictions on the way, it won't be feasible. I know I've written it may not be feasible there, but it won't be feasible to hold your AGM as you would in other years. So now is the time to plan and hold a virtual AGM. And again, I suppose just to go through what the guidelines are, and I know level 1 and level 2 might be much use to this at the minute, but I suppose at level 1 and level 2, you should be holding an AGM, a controlled event, with a named event organizer, owner or a manager. For most venues, a maximum of 100 patrons can attend, and up to 200 patrons are allowed for larger venues where a strict 2-metre seated social distancing and one-way controls for entry and exit can be implemented. So even if we were at the least of the restrictions level 1, you can see it's pretty stringent, and I know a lot of our clubhouses and a lot of places we would usually hold our AGMs wouldn't be able to deal with those kind of restrictions even at level 1. At level 2, then up to 50 people permitted in pods or in groups of up to 6. So you can only have people sitting in up to 6 if appropriate, and again with the social distancing and strictly 2-metre and one-way controls and all that kind of stuff as well. So again, if our goal is to get the most people involved from our club and the most people engaging in our AGM, it's probably not feasible to hold even at level 1 and level 2. It's not feasible to hold it the way we usually would have. And then obviously at level 3, 4 and 5, which is where we're at the minute, no organised indoor gatherings are permitted. So again, it'd be virtual and it would be online. Just I suppose I don't think we do have anyone on from the north, but I know we do have a few people on from outside of Ireland. So just to go over what the guidelines there at the minute, and I know these have changed again even from when I've put up this presentation. So in the 6 counties, this was as of Thursday. There's where the details can be got at that link. But currently, gatherings of indoors or outdoors, not in a private dwelling, up to 15 people were permitted. I think that's actually been put down that you can't do that at all now. The limit for indoor and outdoor gathering didn't apply where that gathering has a recognised person responsible for organising or operating the gathering, and it is organised or operated for a particular nature, including those organised for cultural, entertainment, recreational, outdoor sports, social, community, educational, work, legal, religious or political purposes, or for an indoor sporting event or activity, provided the arena in which it takes place is capable of holding more than 5,000 spectators. So again, I don't think any of our club rooms or our clubhouses would have fell under that either. The organiser must have carried a risk assessment which meets the needs and requirement of those regulations, and take all reasonable measures to limit the risk and transmission of the coronavirus. And the person responsible for organising or operating a gathering must, if requested to do so, by a relevant person, provide that person with a copy of the risk assessment and an account of the reasonable measures taken as soon as possible, and that's within 24 hours of the request. So again, I would be saying there it's not feasible. Even with those restrictions, it wouldn't have been feasible to hold an AGM the way we usually would in the north either. Excuse me. And overseas, we sort of said the guidance that has went out has said that all units outside of Ireland, so all clubs and counties and everything else outside of Ireland, must adhere to the government regulations of their own jurisdiction. So I know we have a few people on the call from London tonight, and I know again Britain and England have introduced their own restrictions again. So I think what I'm trying to say here from our point of view and from a guidance point of view with holding our AGM is that I think no matter where you are, no matter what's going on at the minute, like our advice would be to hold it virtually, to hold your AGM online, and to do it via if I can get my next slide up. So what does that mean for us? It's under the current circumstances where meetings cannot be held due to COVID-19 restrictions, it's possible that your AGMs may be held online, and we're advising that you do hold it online. It's recommended you use Teams if you're holding an AGM online. I know we're using Zoom for the function of this webinar. And look at it, if there is someone in your club, if there's someone who's capable of holding it via a different platform, we have said use Teams because that's our official method of communication. Every secretary of every club has access to Teams to set up the meeting. And we've also sent out a guide to using Teams for the purpose of holding meetings to every county secretary and every club secretary, and that came from info@lgfa.ie. It may have come a number of weeks or months ago now, so maybe you just need to check your email or get in touch with them to get that guide sent out again. But we can offer support that way for holding your AGM via Teams. But if there's someone who's capable and more comfortable holding it via a different platform, and you're happy enough to proceed that way, then you may do that as well. It may not be practical for various reasons to hold your AGM physically, or well, that should just be physically. So as I say, we're advising using it or holding it virtually. An incorporeal AGM is acceptable within rule and where the unit is confident that business can be carried out transparently and within rule. So again, as long as it's within the confines of the official guide, you can hold your AGM. It's acceptable to hold it this way. And as per Rule 42 or 62, sorry, decisions may be taken by a show of hands. If using a virtual system, the hand raise function or chat function can be used, and the chat function can be used for a proposer and seconder for nominations as well. So again, if we were using this tonight, there is a hand raise function, and there's also a chat function for people to put themselves forward for a proposer and a seconder, and there's a hand raise function to show, I suppose, that when a decision needs to be taken by a show of hands. As per Rule 62 as well, contentious issues should be decided by a secret ballot. It's advised that any matters that can wait, to make them wait and remain conservative. 2020 is not the year to consider contentious motions, but obviously we do have to use that secret ballot to elect our officers, and I'll get that. I suppose I'll get that in a wee second. Please note where clubs operate a one club module. There may be some amendments to the GA's, the club constitution, which may apply to how you run your meeting, but this is, I suppose, for LGFA and Ladies Football's only clubs. I suppose what is, and Rule 61 as well, I suppose, on the election of officers and the members of the executive committee are to be done by means of a delivered vote. So I'll get to what a delivered vote is in a minute, but the onus is on the voter to ensure that the vote is submitted and in time, and that's again about electing officers by a secret ballot. So by a delivered vote means by means of post, courier, hand delivery, or other means on or before the date and time to the place specified on the ballot paper. So again, if there's going to be election of officers, that'll have to be done by a secret vote. So there will have to be ballot papers sent out to your club members and then returned to a nominated officer. So a returning officer shall be appointed by the relevant executive committee to oversee the voting process, to include the distribution of ballots. So someone will have to be nominated to distribute ballots to club members and ensure club members get those ballot papers. And then that there is a point that ballot papers can be sent back to, whether that's that returning officer's address or whether that's a central point, whether it's the clubhouse or whatever address you deem acceptable, and that returning officer is responsible for, I suppose, collecting them. But it's on the person who's casting the ballot to make sure that's there in time. Each eligible voter should be provided with a declaration and a voting paper, so a ballot, and then a declaration as well, to say that this is their vote. And also that needs to be in a smaller envelope, needs to be with that. And the bigger envelope as well, to put the whole thing into and address that and back to wherever the votes are going back to, whether that be the returning officer or a specified place. A vote will be declared invalid if the declaration is not completed and returned in the addressed envelope. So not only must, if you're going to do a secret ballot for your officers, someone needs to fill in their ballot of who they wish to elect into the role, and also they need to fill in a declaration to say, this is my vote and I have signed it to say this is how I'm voting, and put that in an addressed envelope and send it back to the returning officer. Each voter must return the signed declaration along with the vote. The vote is to be placed in a smaller envelope and sealed to protect the integrity of the secret ballot in the addressed envelope by the appointed time. So if all votes have to be in, the day before the AGM takes place, then that's the date that all votes have to be in by. And again, it's up to the voter to ensure that they have their vote in by that time. And the returning officer shouldn't be a candidate in any election. So I know that does change the way we usually do things, and it's usually done, I suppose, by being in a room. But now's the time. We've got it's now the 19th of December. If we have to hold our AGMs by the 1st of December, that gives ourselves about 6 weeks. So now's the time to get your AGM advertised, get the date get a returning officer in place, first of all, to make sure the voting process is going to be adhered to, and get a date by which the votes have to be returned to that returning officer as well. I suppose, Gerald, we'll not take any questions out at the minute, but I can see there have been some questions coming in. So I suppose that ends that point of the webinar where our new guidelines have come in, and I hope that has made sense to everyone. So I suppose over the next while, I'm just going to give you some, I suppose, tips on what a virtual AGM actually is, and maybe some tips on how to hold it relatively easily. A virtual AGM is where the meeting is held completely remotely using an official communications channel via video conference, live stream, and/or telephone. So tonight, again, you could link here by clicking on the link on your laptop, your tablet, your phone. You could also click in via telephone as well. So if your club members haven't got the function, the capability to log in via a link provided, or maybe they don't have an email address to be able to join in your AGM, you can use a telephone line to join in as well. So that should be set up when you're setting up your meeting, that people can join using their telephone as well. Some things about planning a virtual AGM: set out an agenda with clear objectives. So as we do with all our meetings, and I know the AGM is set out pretty clearly anyway, but have an agenda for your AGM, and make sure that whoever is moderating the meeting sticks to that agenda, because it can be very easy to get lost in the meeting as well. Send out any required documents in advance of the meeting to ensure all attendees have the correct documents. This should include the agenda and the list of objectives for the meeting. So have that, you have a chance here now to send out an agenda in advance and make sure that people, have read it before they come to the meeting, and they know what's going to be discussed, and they know what's coming up. Establish responsibilities for attendees. So who sets up the meeting, who'll chair the meeting, and who'll be presenting. And I know we probably have a lot of secretaries on the call tonight, and I know you're probably thinking this is all going to be left to yourself, but it can't be, because your job is to record what goes on at the AGM. So you're going to have to get someone else in the club to chair the meeting, whether that's the chairperson or you have a moderator, someone who's going to chair that meeting and make sure it flows, someone who's going to set up the meeting. So again, if you're not comfortable with setting up on the technological side of things, get someone in the club who is, and make sure they're there to help you and assist you, and who'll be presenting. So you will have a number of different presenters on the night, and really a virtual meeting should be easier to present than a physical meeting, because you won't need projectors, you won't need screens, you won't need, all you have to do is share a presentation over your screen. Advise attendees that they need to have access to a laptop or a mobile phone to attend the AGM. But again, if you have that function where you can dial in, they may be able to use their own phone as well. Explain to attendees that an email address is required when setting up a Microsoft Teams account. So again, they will have to, that's for, I suppose, setting up the meeting as well. And ensure that email addresses for each attendee is correct before sending an invitation. So again, if you're going to have to let people know via email that they need to attend this, it'll be a good job to have everyone's email, make sure everyone's email is correct before you send out that invitation. And if someone's not getting the email, that they let you know that. Ensure that details of how to access the AGM is shared well in advance. It's advised that a link to the AGM should be sent out 14 days before the AGM is set to take place. So again, if we're working off the last possible date, being December 1st, you should be sending out your communication on how to actually get involved in the AGM by mid-November at the very latest, and really by the start of November, just to make sure everyone knows how to actually access the AGM. And you need to familiarise yourself with the AGM there as well, but we'll get to that in a wee second. And then a reminder should be set out, 2 to 3 days before the AGM takes place. You should be reminding people that they need, here's the link to get involved again. I suppose just to go in a bit deeper over the next couple of slides, I'm just going to go through a number of wee different tips that we've sort of set out to holding, planning, and taking part in your AGM as well. And the first one, I've said it a couple of times, is giving people notice. So provide sufficient advance notice of the meeting, including instruction on how to participate electronically. And I know I've just went over that, but again, remember, 14 days at least, give people notice. Then by rule, you have to give people 5 days notice anyway. And then you need to get reminders too. So send out reminders. And I know sometimes on Teams and Zoom and other things like that there, you can send out where they automatically get a reminder, or they automatically get a link once they sign up to taking part in the AGM. This may be the first time some of your members have taken part in an online meeting. And I know particularly your elderly members, or your older members, or maybe even your younger members. So make sure they have sufficient time to familiarise themselves with the technology, and maybe it might be handy. There are a number of different instruction videos, on YouTube and things like that there, of how to actually access Teams. So it might be a good idea to even send those videos out and say, look, here's how you actually take part in this meeting. Number 2, really important, is the technology you use. So choose an appropriate technology platform and ensure that it supports the expected number of attendees. It's recommended you use Microsoft Teams if holding your AGM online. And as I say, that's because we have the support there. Microsoft Teams is the official channel we use as the LGFA and Gaelic Games. So we advise that you use that. But again, if someone has the capability or has the experience to use a different platform, and you're happy enough going with that, and you can be sure that nothing will go wrong with that, you could go with that as well. But we advise using Microsoft Teams, and advise your members when they're taking part to log in from a location with a good Wi-Fi connection, because again, I'm sure you all know at this stage what a bad Wi-Fi connection can mean to a meeting, can mean the difference between a success and a failure. So make sure everyone has a good connection when they're logging in. Support. Have a technical support number available for members who have questions about accessing the meeting or have technical difficulties. So that could be, someone in the club who knows how to use the platform, or volunteers to be that link, or be that person who somebody can ring in the days leading up to the AGM, or text in the days leading up to the AGM saying, how do you actually access this thing? And communicate that as well, that if anyone needs any advice or needs any help linking into the AGM, here's the number to call. And I would say appoint a sufficiently experienced club member to this role, if there is one within the club. So again, if there's someone in the club who's willing to take on that role, that'd be great. And if not, if there's anyone in the local area who might be useful, because again, you may need their support on the call, and you may need them this one-off time just to be able to hold your AGM virtually as well. Number 4 then, your setup. So you can see, and I suppose even from my screen tonight, I've got lovely background here behind me. So position your club crest or your banner behind your presenters. So have something in the background that's not distracting, or there's no audio distractions as well in the background when someone's having having your meeting. So again, you can see I have my lovely jerseys here behind me in the call. So you could have something like that there, whether it be your club crest or a banner, just so it's not distracting for people, that there's nothing going on, there's not movement in the background, can be really distracting one as well. And then make sure that there's no audible distractions as well from the people who are presenting. So there's not a racket going on behind them when they're trying to get their report across or they're trying to speak. Ensure all participants are automatically muted upon entry to the meeting. I'm sure we've all been in meetings over the last number of months, or we've all been on calls, whether again that with friends, family, where someone has been muted when they shouldn't be, and someone who hasn't been muted when they should be, and there's background noise and there's maybe talking over the person who's presenting. So make sure that all your members are all the people that take part in the call are muted unless they need to engage. Remember to notify members that the meeting will be recorded, and if you're doing so, and I would encourage everyone to record their AGM, because again, even from a secretary's point of view, it'll be really useful when reviewing what decisions were actually taken at the AGM, and you're not going to have to rely on your notes. You can actually go back and watch it again and say, well, this is the decision we've made on this different subject. So I would be advising you all to record your AGM just for even handiness of that purpose. It's important to appoint a moderator as well who can feed back on questions being asked in the chat and keep participants muted until required. So thankfully, and I really appreciate it, Gerard is doing that function tonight. So he's keeping an eye on the chat. He's keeping an eye on what comes in. If there is something really pressing, he'll interrupt me and say, look, here's something that's came up from that, or maybe at the end we'll go through all the questions. But it's really important to have someone doing that role, because even in my position here tonight, I'm presenting to you, so I'm not really keeping an eye on what's going on in the chat. So to have someone doing that role, and again, I wouldn't advise that be the secretary, because the secretary is going to be busy making notes, keeping a track on what decisions are made. Because even though if you're recording the session, you still need to keep your own notes as well. So I wouldn't say that moderator could be the secretary, but I would try and find someone to fill in that role. And it can't really be the chair either if they're keeping the meeting or they're chairing the meeting. So it would have to be someone else as a moderator there. Big one here, the 3 R's, rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. I think myself and Gerard here are very well used to doing these now. We've done a number of them over lockdown, but things can go wrong, and if you're not used to the technology, they can go wrong very easily as well. So for your AGM to run smoothly, it's essential to practice, especially if you're not familiar with running online meetings. And again, it's new to us all. At the very start, I think we had a number of different Wi-Fi related issues when myself and Gerard ran these previously. We had a number of different Wi-Fi issues. We had to find the best spots in the house even to present and to switch on and to get connected. So knowing that in advance, and not waiting to the night for something like that to happen can be really, really important to holding your virtual AGM as well. And if there's going to be a vote, ensure you've practiced how this is going to work, that you can easily work out if a vote has passed or not. So again, I'm thinking there, if there's a motion that is coming up and it's coming up, get that out to your members. Or really, it's going to be your officers this year. It's going to be electing your officers. Make sure people know who the officers are, who the prospective officers are going to be, who they can vote for, when they can vote, how they can vote, and what time the vote needs to be back in at. Because you can't really have a situation where people are voting on the night, because you can't really know if that's them or not, because they're all logging in, I suppose, virtually. So again, the way we're going to do it is that posted or that couriered ballot. So that needs to be in before the vote actually, or before the meeting actually takes place. And then I suppose in the envelope that it's sealed in, then counted on the night. Smooth running then. Make sure all your speakers are in a quiet location. So again, I'm myself here, I'm in a sort of locked away in a side room in the house here, that I'm not going to be disturbed. And make sure all your speakers aren't going to be disturbed as well. So your secretary, your treasurer, when they're giving the reports, any other reports that are taking place, that they're not going to be disturbed while they're doing that. And again, just remind your speakers as well that if they have anyone else in the house, or they have any other family members that maybe aren't in the call, that they give them that 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, or however long your meeting's going to last, that they don't disturb them. Again, really important, check your internet connection, and I'd be saying that to everyone on the call as well. Check their internet connections. This may mean asking others not to use internet, not to be streaming Netflix or whatever it is, for as much for the duration of the meeting, just so you can get the best I suppose, sound and the best quality of the call for the duration of the call. And it's recommended for all participants, apart from officers presenting, to keep their cameras off to present drag on bandwidth for better reception. So you can see all at the minute. I'm the only person with my camera on at the minute. Gerard, helpfully, has put his off, and everyone else hasn't put theirs on either. So it's really important, just for the quality of the call as well, that that you keep your cameras off unless it's someone giving a report, really, I would say. And sometimes, you know, you might decide that you don't need your camera on at all. And then lastly, but not leastly, have a plan B. Okay, so make sure you have a list of all things that could go wrong and how you will respond if they do, and what impact that could have in the meeting. So that could be something as, you know, as massive in terms of a virtual meeting as the internet being down. What are you going to do? Have you a second date that you've set up that's our fallback, that if this doesn't happen, and is that still going to be before the 1st of December? So again, my advice on that would be, don't be going for that 1st of December deadline. Give yourself some breathing room, that if something does go wrong when you aim to have your AGM, that you have, you know, a week or a set time or whatever it is that you can fall back to. Common issues there could be internet connection or quality problems, having echo or feedback or sound problems, or people dropping in and out of the meeting. So you can see at the very start there of this meeting, again, we set out that everyone's going to be muted, so there wasn't going to be any distractions that way. I've set up in a quiet space, so when I'm talking, I'm not going to be distracted, or there's not going to be no disruptions. And there's advice at the start there, if you drop out of the meeting, to log back in using the details provided, or even if your sound drops off, or you know, something, your quality of your call drops off, to log in and log out. And it can be as simple as even letting people know that at the very start. That can make the things run a lot smoother. And I suppose just at this point, I'd like to go back to one of the points I made earlier about using Microsoft Teams as our official. I think it's an official. It's recommended. And another reason why we would recommend Microsoft Teams is that unless you have a Zoom license and I suppose a Zoom account like this one that you're paying for, your Zoom call is only going to last 40 minutes. So again, if you have someone in the club who has that Zoom account that can last for longer than that, and they're willing to use it for the purpose of the AGM, then maybe, you know, you might be free to use that. But the Microsoft Team call is free, and you can use it for, you know, however long you can. And again, you can use upwards of 200 people in that Microsoft Teams call. So hopefully you wouldn't need too many more than that for having all the members of your club involved on the call, or all the adult members, or however many people you need to be involved in it as well. So those are, I suppose, our tips on having your virtual AGM. I hope you've got some good information there. I hope you've got some good tips on how to run it there. That's it from us this evening. And just if you have any questions, or Gerard, maybe if there's any questions have come in over the call, maybe you want to come in now. And if there's not any questions, I'd like to thank you all for your participation tonight. And thanks for taking part in this.